everyone. Half a day. I hope everyone enjoyed their lunch. So I would like to thank the Port of Stockton and EA Engineering Science and Technology Incorporated, PBC, for sponsoring our lunch. So round of applause to them. It was a very delicious lunch. So this afternoon, our first speaker will be covering building resilient maritime infrastructure across the Pacific. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Kaoru Kasahara. So Mr. Kasahara is Principal Transport Specialist at the Asian Development Bank, where he is responsible for various transport projects in Asia and the Pacific. He is being engaged in maritime transport projects in Pacific Island countries, including Nauru and Tuvalu. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Kasahara.
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Kaoru Kasahara. As introduced by her, I'm working for Asian Development Bank. And then first, I would like to thank to the APP for this great opportunity to introduce you what ADB is doing in the region. Through the attending this conference, I came to know that we are working on the same area, a lot of similarity, but also we have some differences. So this time, I would like to introduce first what we are, ADB is, and what we are doing in the transport sector, and then move to what we are doing in the maritime transport sector in the Pacific. Then at the end, I will introduce some kind of iconic project. So to introduce ADB, I would like to introduce our purpose statement, so missions. So we are going to support sustainable, inclusive, and resilient growth over the region. And working with the members, and the members is the member countries, and the partners solve complex challenges together. And then we are targeting, not only providing the infrastructure, we are trying to transform people's life, the people's society, and make it a more sustainable life in the region. So ADB is a so-called multilateral development bank. So maybe that most of participants are from United States, so you're familiar with World Bank, of course, the biggest MDB. We are founded in 1966, so almost 20 years after World Bank. World Bank was established in 1945. Then we are owned by 69 members, and then 50 from the regions, then 19 outside. So 19 includes United States, Canada, and the European countries. So they provide some funds, and then kind of serve as board members. And then ADB headquarters is located in Manila, Philippines, and then 43 offices around the world. So this map, sorry, it's a little bit difficult to read, but leftmost, the west, I would say westmost, region member is Turkey. Then east end, maybe Cook Islands. So these are regional members, but as you see in the blue text, like Japan, Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, these are already developed countries, so they cannot receive our financial support. And then the dot in the map indicate the location of our offices. And then, as I said, out of this region, we have 19 members. Philippines is the headquarters. Right. Then Guam is around here, right?
So, but do you have offices like in Tuvalu, Kiribati, Samoa? I'm trying to.
Sorry.
You have several offices.
Yes, some of offices.
Palau, so I think
Yeah, actually, that there is a biggest office is headquartered in Manila, and then so-called regional resident missions. This is headed by international staff, and then some countries, like small countries like Tuvalu, Nauru, we hire just a couple of local officers that for liaison or for communication purpose. So this map includes all the small offices, only hiring the local staff as well. So recently that we created resident mission, upgraded office to the higher level at Solomon Island. Then I think Marshall Island also recently made a upgraded office. This is a indicating amount we provide in the region. So this is annual amount. So we provided 29.3 billion US dollar. This is, I think, 2025 amount. So out of this, around 30 billion financing, 23 million is for public sector, meaning the sovereign loan. And then 5.5 billion for private sector, no sovereign guarantee. So we have, a private sector team I belong to, and then also private sector financing team. Then in addition, we also have a dedicated team working on PPP project. So working as a transaction advisor, because we are facing that huge financing gaps. So we are trying to mobilize the private fund as well. And then right side, we have technical assistance. This is a grant basis. So we are trying to provide supporting like a capacity development or master planning for the member countries.
Could I ask, with the technical assistance for, like, let's say, strategic plans for ports, let's say in the Marshalls or in Hawaii, could they be eligible for that?
Yes, it's possible. Actually, personally, I work on Sri Lanka's port master plan, national port master plan, and then my director prepared a strategic master plan for the Chittagong port. And so even Tuvalu, we prepared some master planning. So technical assistance is available, but unfortunately, I didn't mention the Guam is part of U.S., so Guam cannot
It would
receive.
not be for Guam. No, I'm sorry, it would not be for Guam, but the Association of Pacific Ports has members that are non-U.S.
Yes.
So
yes.
this is why I'm asking, and opportunities for our members. That's
Yes.
what I was asking for.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I checked the member list of the APP. I understand the Tonga, Fiji, and then Marshall Islands, they are member of APP as well as ADB's member country. Yeah. So they are eligible to receive our support.
Thank you.
So 14.7 billion per year is the amount we receive from that co-financing partner, including World Bank, AIIB, or even bilateral financier like Japan, Australia, these kind of co-financing amount. So they just, we administer this co-financing amount and then combine these funds and then financing over the project. And then it's by region. Unfortunately, that the amount in the Pacific is very limited. It's because of economic size of the member countries. So majority is these three, Central and West Asia, South Asia, and then Southeast Asia. What's regional? Yeah, regional is that this commitment is for, we signed a loan agreement or grant agreement with a single country, but also that we give some financing resources covering multiple countries. Okay. And then if you look at by sector, transport is the second largest, 5 billion per year. Of course, every year this amount changes. And then finance, this is, we also provide some financial resources to alleviate, or I would say de-stress their fiscal challenges. For example, Middle East crisis this year, some country need some, quick assistance. So these years, this finance sector is increasing that amount. But for like a hard development, infrastructure development, transport is, and the energy is kind of leading sectors.
Can I ask for cybersecurity would fall under?
Cybersecurity, if it comes to that, for example, port, it can be component of the transport project. And then last year of this year, we created a new division, so-called ITD, Information Technology Development, that kind of new, we hired a new specialist specialized in IT. And then we are trying to incorporate the reforms using the IT system or cybersecurity, any kind of the needs related to IT. Now we are kind of focusing. This will be highlighted now a little bit later. So we have, last slide showed the kind of commitment amount by sectors. And then cross-sectoral topics, we call the operation priorities. We are kind of focusing on these 5 issues. One is climate action, same as, as an organization or even APP. And then private sector development, even the government or even together with MDB like us cannot fill the gap, financial gap. So we have to mobilize the private sector investment as well. So we are trying to finance project to facilitate private investment or catalyze that kind of involvement or development. And then regional cooperation and then public goods. One kind of iconic project or concept is regional power grid, connecting the multiple countries in ASEAN or South Asia. Not so advanced, but some concept is coming up. Then as you just asked, digital transformation is one key agenda. So we are not going to invest on infrastructure development. We are trying to do to kind of maximize the benefit using the ITD. And then resilience and then empowerment is more on empowerment of the people left behind, so like trying to achieve the gender equality or kind of universal access or universal mobility for the all people, including the elderly or children or people with disabilities. So going back to the climate change, we have committed ourselves to invest 100 billion by 2030. So it's a big, it sounds big challenge, but having almost 30 billion annual commitment, and then as per the number of projects, we have already more than 75% of the project are kind of tagged as climate change, or at least have some climate change component. So we are trying to meet that kind of, ambitious target, hopefully. And ADB released a joint statement among the MDB, together with World Bank, etc. In response to the Paris Agreement, our kind of project selection or project formation to be in line with Paris Agreement, emphasizing the climate change. So this is a climate change financing at ADB. So recently that we are increasing the amount. So 1 billion from external resources, then 11 billion from our own resources. Then let me move to the transport sector. So I introduced that ADB bank-wide strategy In line with this bank-wide strategy, we have some vision to achieve mobilize efficient, clean, resilient, and then multimodal integrations. And then, of course, we have inclusion of all people, and then providing safe infrastructure, safe mobility. And then recent years, key opportunities physical digital integration of modes as part of the managed transport ecosystem, specifically in urban transport. We are trying to interconnect different transport modes, and then also kind of integrate all the information. For example, the timetable of the different mode, how it connects. Of course, you can imagine, because you're using Google app, etc. And then transformative pathways to low carbon transport, then low carbon energy efficient modes. So we are financing like an e-bus or e-ferry. E-ferry was non-sovereign financing that we financed in the Bangkok. And then green and digital logistics, so not only the people, the logistics we also trying to finance. And then private sector financing for complex solutions, and the transit-oriented development. This is, again, urban transport. Then, having maybe that you got some impression ADB is a big player in the region. However, unfortunately, this graph indicates the maritime transport is very limited kind of share. In 2010, the road sector was dominant. And then, as you see that there is a very minimal, you cannot see, but a very minimal share of the maritime transport. But it doesn't mean ADB has not invested in the maritime transport. For example, in South Asia, the biggest transit port is Colombo. Then Colombo's port expansion we financed. That's more than 3 kilometers of breakwater, reclamation of land on top of the land, now that the private sector is operating the container terminal. So from time to time, we finance maritime transport project, but nowadays that the big port can easily access to the commercial bank financing resources, so they don't come to us for the financing. So therefore, that maritime transport share is very limited. Then nowadays, more rail comes because of the motorization, the urbanization of the member countries. More requests are coming for the commuter train or metros. So this reflects this kind of change in the society. So climate finance of the transport sector is 1 billion. However, as I said, the share is small, but our one of the key priority, or we are targeting, is that maritime decarbonization. However, that like a shore power is a little bit difficult to, or not being requested by that small developing countries. And the new fuel, last year we signed a MOU with IAPH, International Association of the Port and Harbor. This is the biggest association of the Port Authority, partnering with IMO. We are trying to kind of MOU to confirm that the future collaboration in terms of that, including the new fuels initiative. But ADB is more kind of cautious. What kind of new fuel will be selected? We want to wait, until market decides. But our strategy is that new fuel will be applied from the major route or major port, and then it will cascade down to the region of the including the developing countries. So our approach is that once market decides a new fuel, we want to salvage. We are saying that, no country left behind. This is our approach. And then system electrification, mass transit, greening railways, urban e-mobility, these are also priorities. And then, as I said, the private sector shift, we are trying to catalyze to maximize the private sector investment. And then greening electrification of port and airport facilities. So partnering with non-sovereign teams, we are trying to include this kind of activities. Then, however, the challenge we face is that from the small port authority, electrification of cargo handling equipment, a little bit they are reluctant or more cautious to, if kind of looking at, try to find out right timing to jump on these electrifications. So we are just keeping the policy dialogue with them. And action areas, sector knowledge and expertise, complex initiative to maximize the impact. And then even for private sector non-sovereign project, we are supporting some conceptualization of the project. Some Pacific port, we are supporting master planning, but the targeted financing modality is non-sovereign or PPP. So but the financing of this master planning is coming from the sovereign chain. So this kind of initiative is ongoing. Then solution shift, like a transit-oriented development, urban planning, then smart mobility. So these will require investment or more active participation of the private sector. So we are also trying to push these forward. And then now moving to the maritime transport in the Pacific. So I gave some snapshot of the project as well. So again, this is a coverage of the ADB in the Pacific. We have 14 countries. Then in terms of the kind of size of loans or operation in each country, Fiji and Papua New Guinea are much bigger than remaining. And then actually Papua New Guinea, I think, accounts for more than 60–70% of the entire Pacific portfolio. So these are kind of areas we are focusing on. These are coming for the 12 countries, excluding Fiji and then Papua New Guinea. So they have common strategic paper. So one target in transport sector in the Pacific is delivering sustainable services. As we discussed in the previous session, one challenge is that these countries interested only in development, but just they neglect not financing or conducting the proper maintenance, and then provide the long-term sector support. So provide some master planning or some long-term strategic paper we provide, and then mitigate climate change. And then for connectivity, I gave one example. So, in the previous section that you kind of supply chain connection was highlighted, focusing on the flying that west coast of US and then Guam. But supply chain doesn't end at Guam. We have to reach out last mile connectivity. So this kind of, as I said, not leave the people behind or lagged, we are trying to achieve or ensure that the accessibility to the mobility, even for the rural area people. And ICT and then safety security are also targeted. The climate resilience, disaster risk reduction, of course you're aware. We are trying to incorporate these aspects in all projects. So this slide gives some kind of snapshot. What kind of project we are financing in the Pacific? So roughly speaking, we have 3 pillars or 3 categories. One is at the left side, that to reach out the outer island people, that people who has least access to the mobility, we are trying to construct some port facility. And then in the middle, we are trying to upgrade or rehabilitate the gateway port of the member countries in Pacific. The last one is that we have only one project so far. We are trying to finance ship itself. Some Pacific countries, they have, because of the limited size of population or economic size, they cannot expect port call by the commercial shipping lines. Therefore, some countries own vessel, operate vessel by themselves. So we financed one vessel. This is owned and operated by Tsubaru government. And then together with these three pillars, we are trying to support, improve the capacity of the government staff or institutional reform as well. Then this indicates the ongoing maritime project in the Pacific. Unfortunately, that in the northern area, Marshall Islands, etc., we don't have any ongoing project. But this is not because of our intention. What we finance is determined through the conversation or dialogue with Ministry of Finance of each government. So we have some country allocation of the grant or some headroom for the lending of the loan. So based on the mutual agreement, we decide what will be financed in 3 years. So that means the lack of maritime project in these countries are based on this dialogue. So it means that the government is not prioritize this maritime project. So, but actually during this conference, I was approached by some port authority. I already advised that if you want to access to the ADB financing resources, first step is that approach the line ministry, then deliver your request to the Ministry of Finance, and then put on the table for the consultation with ADB. Then if successful, we are ready to finance any project. So if you look at this map, we are covering more southern Pacific countries. So some major port, gateway port, this is Nauru one, Tonga one, and then Solomon Islands, and then as well as outer islands port facilities. Then besides the three pillars I introduced, we also finance like a navigation aid or emergency response after earthquake damage. And then from here, project snapshot. This is Tsubaru Strengthening Domestic Shipping Project, the ship project. We approved 2022, and then we already delivered a vessel. The project scope is that the replacement of the existing passenger and then cargo ship, and the fender replacement, and then capacity development. So the same picture, this ship was delivered last year, and then fender was replaced. And then one issue I want to highlight is that we constructed the ship meeting international standard. So our understanding is this is a kind of first vessel operated by the Pacific government, and then being classed under the class NK, and then free covered with underwriter of Lloyd's insurance. To date, the people in the Pacific is using the vessel not properly maintained or fully covered by insurance. So that means the people exposed to the high risks. So this time that we try to meet this, kind of meeting a global standard vessel. And then also, as highlighted in the previous session, our concern is that maintenance, then proper allocation of fund for insurance or even the dry docking. So this time we delivered, and then to answer this kind of challenge, we processed another grant because this is exclusively for the dry docking and insurance renewal. As I said, country has some allocation, annual allocation, so that means we are trying to ring fence this amount exclusively for that maintenance and insurance for this ship. So that means that, this ensures sustainability of the vessel. Of course, there is some question, if government follow this requirement, but we put the condition, the money will expire within 5 years, so that it's incentive for them to keep them. And then also the challenge of the shortage of the capacity of the government staff. So we kind of supported, provided on-job training of the maintenance staff. Another vessel owned by the government went to the dry docking in New Zealand. We sent an international consultant to attend the dry docking and trained, attended government staff. If a maintenance problem is identified by dry docking yard, he explained what should have been done and then prepared manuals. And then we gave some small success of the good maintenance. Actually, it was the first dry docking in the last 4 years. Then after dry docking, they witnessed the improvement of the fuel consumption. On the way to the New Zealand dry docking and then coming back, so the fuel consumption of the return trip was 40% less. So that they learned, how proper maintenance improves their operations. And then Solomon Island, this is a more half gateway port, half outer island port. So we provided some road improvement and then facility improvement. Then Tonga Nuku'alofa port upgrade project, the gateway port project. So the port container terminal was damaged, deteriorated. So we provided some extension and some rehabilitation of the remaining container yard. Also that we applied some innovative construction method for the so-called rock bag, using the limestone locally produced. Instead of the big armor rock, we used some innovative approach. Then again, Tsubaru, Outer Island Maritime Infrastructure Project. As I mentioned, that the supply chain ends at the very, very end of, or most of farthest point of the country. So this is a map of Tsubaru. Funafuti is the capital. Then there are not many, 8 remote islands. Then we are trying to finance or construct a small port facility. So this is New Tau Island. So we are constructing these small facilities. Of course, this small facility, they can enter only with this small boat, workboat. So before this boat harbors, how they move or how they get on board is people are forced to walk on this reef. Even the children or elderly people or disabled people, they have to walk in the water and then they get on board. So we just constructed this port. However, of course, you may question what is the economic viability or financial viability of this project. So now, as I said, this is a conversation based on the conversation of the government, because rather than economic or financial viability or justification, this was constructed from the perspective of the minimum access of the people. So maybe the perspective of the human rights. So this was requested by the government. So we are trying to complete within this year. This is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kasahara. So do we have a few minutes for questions?
Maybe one, two.
One or two?
From a project management perspective, do you get involved in going out to the sites and seeing how they're using the loans you're funding? Or do you leave that solely up to the individual governments to manage?
Yes. ADB applies FIDIC contract, so that means we mobilize that engineer. And then so engineer, usually that the European or Australian company comes in and then they manage and then they check the quality of infrastructure. So key point is that we have to mobilize a quality consultant, quality contractors, and then therefore that we have regularly keep updating the procurement regulations. Now, this year we introduced the merit point criteria, not only relying on the low price only. We try to select high quality contractor. Also, ADB staff project officer is mandated to visit project site or at least the capital once a year. So regularly we are monitoring this issue. Also that you may know that we prioritize the safeguard issue, resettlement, involuntary resettlement or environmental damage. We are sending that our specialist to site.
I have a question, Kasahara-san, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so in what I heard you, like for financing, the port would put in a request to their country's Minister of Finance, and then Minister of Finance would put the request to the Finance Office of ADB? Is that the process?
Yes. We have annual exercise to discuss with Ministry of Finance of the respective countries. So we decide what will be financed in the next 3 years. But our counterpart is Ministry of Finance. Then they are compiling that all respective requests from the line ministries.
Okay.
Right? So that means to reach out ADB, the first step is that convince the line ministry, Ministry of Finance, and then request them put your project on the table for negotiation with us.
Okay, so where I'm going on this is the next step. We have our meeting, our winter meeting in Honolulu, Hawaii, in January of next year, and I think that we appreciate you being here because there's interest, obviously, from the small island developing state members that are part of APP, and so maybe is there an opportunity, and I leave this to you about maybe an informal consultation on how to prepare the proposal coming from the perspective of the port, so that way they can send it into their country Minister of Finance, because they're probably expecting, when the country's Minister of Finance accepts things, the proposal has to be complete from whoever is asking. No, that's what my thought is, and if there's an opportunity to help our members who are eligible in preparing the best proposal to provide to their Minister of Finance, right? I think that would be very helpful. And so is that called informal consultation? I don't know what the term is, just to provide technical, it's not technical assistance, but to maybe provide a simple training on what to put into your application. So that way they get it right the first time, no?
Yeah, actually, not like a federal grant, we don't have application form. So we prepare, as I said, we prepare some first country partnership strategy, and then I think that all countries already have this CPS, and then accordingly that we prepare the pipeline, list of pipeline project for next 3 years. So we prepared, so what you have to do is that just specify what you want, and then even that before physical investment, we have modality to conduct the feasibility study. This is technical assistance. And then for the detailed design preparation, this must be loan. So based on the year phase, you can request various financing modality. If you want to start with a feasibility study, you request for technical assistance. And then maybe that how to approach or how to strategically convince Ministry of Finance, maybe you can jump to the ADB office in your country. You said in Pompeii, you have office, right? Then we have representative over there, so you can request them to give advice to you how to strategically file your request.
Thank you.